Hi there folks, you're watching the Black Powder Shooter 44 channel. Today I got the 1858 Remington here. I fired it yesterday. It's all dirty, needs to be cleaned. So we're going to get to cleaning it right now. So like I said, this gun was fired yesterday. I don't like letting the gun sit more than 2 days. That's max. I like cleaning it the same day to shoot, but for some reason I don't have the time or whatever. Letting it sit overnight is not really a big deal. It depends also what kind of climate you live in. Do you live in a humid climate, dry climate? You know, that'll play a factor in how long you can let it sit before cleaning it. So, my first step of what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cylinder off the gun. Take that out. I'm also going to take the base pin and the loading lever off. So, let me get that off here real quick. So I got that off. Now we just got the bare frame, except for, of course, the internals, which we're not going to take out today. You don't need to do that every time you fire the gun. So you're going to find out very quickly that I like ball salt oil for cleaning these black powder guns, and we're mainly using this for a lubricant and also making a solvent with it and water. I do that. Ball salt is good because it's a non-petroleum based product and it mixes with water, so that's pretty cool. And but most of the time I actually like to use just pure straight water from the tap, so I don't worry about boiling the water. You know, a lot of people like to do that. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. And I'm gonna go ahead and start taking the nipples off with this Take Cash ratcheting nipple wrench. There's nothing wrong with using hot soapy water, but I find it's just not necessary. You know, the water dries quicker, and you know that's a nice thing. But I just don't feel like putting in the prep work of doing something that I don't really necessarily need to do, you know. So I want to take these nipples and throw them in a small container here, and I'm going to go ahead and take off all 6 of these. Alright, I'm over here at the sink, and I got my cylinder here. I took the nipples out, got the base pin, I got the nipples in this little container here. I'm just going to fill this up with water, and I'm going to let that sit while I clean the rest of the gun. Let it start working on the salts and the black powder and start dissolving that residue. Then from here, I'm going to rinse off the cylinder. I like to rinse off as many of the parts as I can. If you're cleaning a Colt style revolver, those are real nice to clean because you could rinse the whole barrel off. You take it off, run it under the water here, and that's really comes in handy. I'd say you don't have to use as many cleaning catches, and I'm gonna rinse off the space pin. Now I'm gonna fill this container up with water, and we're gonna get back to cleaning the main frame. I got the small parts in this little container here. I set it off to the side. Now we're going to work on the main frame. Now, like I said, you can make a solution with this ball salt water, ball salt oil and water, and I like to do that. But you know, if you don't want to buy the ball salt oil or you don't have any, you could just use water in the squirt bottle. I mean, it's not really a big deal. The nice part about this is if I miss a spot, you know, you got a little oily film left over, and that will, you know, not rust. So that's the benefit of using the ball salt oil mixed with the water. So I'm just going to squirt this on the gun, squirt some down the bore. If I had a funnel, I couldn't find one before. If I had a funnel, I would just stick it in this part of the barrel and then run that through the sink, you know, so I don't get any, make sure I don't get any water down into the internals. But if you're careful, and you can run water just from the tap down the bore, that'll save, you know, quite a few patches, but we're not going to worry about that today. So I'm going to squirt this wherever there's residue. I'm going to squirt this. Alright, that's good. Now I want to let me grab a paper towel. I'm going to wipe off the screw and the loading lever here. And that's pretty much good for that, so I'm going to set that aside. What I'm going to do now is wipe down the frame. It's got an old t-shirt here. I use it for cleaning my guns. And just wipe off the fouling off the frame. Really, this process of cleaning the guns, there's really a million ways to do it, just to clean a black powder gun, and there's no right or wrong way per se, you know. but this is the way I like to do it. You can make it more confusing or easier. You know, it just depends. There's some solutions people like to use, you know, like Murphy's oil soap mixed with water, which I've never tried. It sounds interesting, but Windex. I know some people try Windex. I've never tried that myself. I just haven't had the need to. You know, there's a bunch of different hot soapy water like we talked about earlier, and they all do the job, I guess, because people like them. But I don't really, like I said, I don't feel the need to do that. Now you're gonna need a brass bristle brush because you're gonna have some powder caked up around the hammer, on the hammer itself, some areas like that under the frame. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna scrub a little bit. If you're using a brass bristle brush, you don't have to be worried about it scraping any of the finish off. So if you're using a steel brush, yeah, you're gonna run the problems. But I even go around the beginning of the barrel there, which some powder cakes up and I just can't get it out with a patch. So we're gonna go ahead and hit it quickly with the brush. Squirt a little solution there. Give it some good scrubs. Looks pretty good. And I'm also going to work on the hammer itself. You can use a toothbrush as well. I know a lot of people like to do that. I just like the stiff bristles of this brass brush. I feel like it gets that caked up powder that you see on these guns, and does a good job of cutting that up, scraping it off. So take our t-shirt here, wipe this off, let's see what we got. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do. I'm going to wipe this down a little bit more, and we'll be right back. Something else you're going to need if you want to make your life a little easier is just some Q-tips. Some areas in the frame that you can't reach with a patch or a brush, like right here, and that notch where the hammer goes in the frame. And a good bit of fouling collects in there, so I'm going to run this Q-tip down in there. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to run Q-tip down in here where the base pin goes. Fouling gets in there. Down where the loading lever goes. And then I'm going to run the patch through the barrel. We're ready to clean the bore now on the Remington. And like I said earlier, if you're able to run some water down the bore without getting it down in the internals, you know, from your sink with a funnel, something like that, that'll make the cleaning process a little easier. Save a few patches. That's not a big deal. I'm just going to squirt these patches here. And I'm going to got this jag here on my loading rod. I'm going to run it down the barrel. Flip it around, do the other side. Another patch here. And that's actually a lot better. And what I'm going to do now is I want to put a brush on here, and this brush has seen some use. It's seen better days. But until I get a new one, this one's going to have to do. Until we still have some more junk in there. So I want to run another wet patch. It's actually looking pretty good. Let's try a dry patch. Pretty good. Let's run another wet patch. See if there's anything we missed. Nope. We had a runaway there. But you see, it looks really good. So I'm going to run 2 dry patches through here now. Apologize, I keep bumping into my camera here. Getting a little bit of that gray stuff, you know. Seems like you could always keep getting that if you keep trying. But I'm going to run one more wet patch and then 2 more dry patches and we'll probably be good there. Okay, we're going to clean the cylinder and the base pin here now. I took them out of that container of water we had. It was just sitting in there, loosening up the fouling. So I'm just going to wipe off this base pin real quick. And we will oil it up in a couple minutes. Take our cylinder. Wipe off any loose residue here. And take some Q-tips. Wipe that up. Take some Q-tips and just run it through here. The area around the nipples is an area that gets really nasty. From percussion caps. Run down through the nipple holes. Run through the base pin opening here. Alright, we're going to work on the chambers itself. All I'm going to do is going to reuse some of these patches we use for cleaning the bore. And I want to run through each chamber like this with wet patches until they start coming out looking pretty good. When that happens, I'm going to run a dry patch through. Okay, cylinder's all done. I'm going to clean up these nipples here. Sometimes I just take 2 patches and drop them on the floor. So I'm going to take 2 patches and wipe off the nipple. But most of the time I like to take the brush real quick, hit the threads real quick, then wipe off the residue off of each nipple, and that's pretty much all I do. This is my least favorite part about cleaning this. This is a little tedious. To blow through the vent hole there, just make sure no water's in there. Wipe it off, and that'll be good. So I'm going to do all 6 of these. Everything's clean. We're going to get the gun oiled up here. Real quick, I'm going to take the aerosol ballistol and spray these nipples here. That's all they need. And then for the bore, take this ballistol oil and squirt a patch. Let it soak in. I'm going to take our gun here. Put it over the bore and just run it through. Set the gun aside for a second. Take the cylinder and run the patch through each chamber. Okay, so what I like to do once I got the bore oiled up with the ballistol is something that will make a lot of black powder shooters might make you faint, but I like to run a patch of petroleum-based just rem oil. It's a lubricant. I'm just going to run through the bore. It's good rust preventative. Whatever you like for a rust preventative, I like to run it through at this point. And before I go to shoot again, I'll wipe the patch with wipe the bore with a dry patch. I won't have to worry about any of the powder sticking to the bore. So I'm going to run this through real quick. Trying to squirt it everywhere like I just did. Not totally necessary, but I feel like this is better for long-term storage. So I'll run that through, put that aside. Now I'm going to take the gun and put the cylinder on. Put the cylinder on the gun here. I'll take our aerosol ballistol, squirt the frame a couple times. Now I'm going to wipe this off, and we're pretty much all done. Okay, the Remington's cleaned and oiled up. I wiped off that excess oil from the spray-on ballistol, and we got a nice film coating the whole gun. Gun's nice and clean. And there's a million ways to clean a black powder gun, but this is how I like to do it. You know, there's no right or wrong way necessarily. And it could be as easy or as hard as really as you make it, to be honest. But didn't take too long, and the gun is ready to go again. So if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone you know who might like this. Thanks for watching.